Hi there, my name is Lynna Sutherland. I'm a homeschool mom of 8 with 2 graduates from our homeschool and 6 still in our homeschool. I blog over at yourlargefamilyhomeschool.com, and today I am here to tell you about a product that I'm pretty excited about from Berean Builders. It's called Discovering Design with Biology. And this book in particular is extremely well laid out, so I wanted to show you a little bit about it and then some of the resources that go along with it. For this video review today, I'm using chapter 8, and you can see that each chapter is going to begin with a scripture verse. You may not be able to read it on the camera, but the purple section at the top of each chapter is a scripture verse, and this one is from Exodus, and it's about unleavened bread. So relevant for a discussion of microbiology. Also, there are many experiments throughout the chapters. And again, you may not be able to read it on the camera, but this experiment in the blue section here, the experiments in this book, I've been really pleased to find are often things that we can do with things that we already have around the household or things that are not that difficult to get. We recently did an experiment that used iodine, which wasn't something that we happened to have on hand, but it was something we could easily add to our Walmart Plus order and complete that experiment with other things that we had around the house, like cornstarch and Ziploc bags. And it was a very efficient experiment that demonstrated exactly what it was meant to demonstrate. But it was really nice to have an experiment that wasn't super complicated, didn't require any special ingredients that we didn't have easy access to. And it really did work. It wasn't one of those failed experiments that we've sometimes experienced in our homeschool. As I mentioned before, another thing that I really love about this biology textbook is the way that it's laid out. And I'm just going to show you a few things. For example, a lot of the keywords that are discussed within the text are in bold print. And then oftentimes particular words that are defined are pulled out in special types. So here we have an underlined word and then a definition for that word. So in the text it says, unicellular organisms are able to move using pseudopods, and then this underlined word here is pseudopod. So it does pop out right there in the text and define what a pseudopod is. And then in addition, it makes it easier when students are glancing back, especially when they get to the end of the chapter review or they're preparing for a test. It's easy for them to hop back in there and take a look at those definitions that are delineated, especially in the text. Also, if as a homeschool mom, if you've ever worked with a math book that has, for example, like the odd numbered problems are answered in the back of the book, well, this science curriculum has something very similar. At the end of every few paragraphs or at the end of a section, there are these yellow text areas. And you'll see there's one here, continuing onto this page. And these are called comprehension checks. And so it's just a little break when you come to the end of a section to check and make sure you understand. And the answers to these comprehension questions. So for example, this is 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4. So just a few questions in between these sections. But if we flip to the end of the chapter, there are answers to all of the comprehension questions that have happened in the chapter. So if I wanted to check myself on 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4, I could flip over here and make sure I have them right. It's just a way to make sure as students are reading through the text that they're understanding what's happening. They're being asked a question that's very similar to the kinds of questions that they might find on the end of chapter review or on the test. It's a good way for them to just make sure that they're not falling behind in their understanding it in incremental steps as they go through the text. And then also at the end of a chapter, in addition to the answers for the periodic comprehension checks, there is a full chapter review. So you can see here the chapter 8 chapter review, heavy focus on vocabulary, because that's a huge factor to science learning, and then questions to answer. Now, the chapter review answers are not in the textbook. The answers to the chapter review are actually found in the teacher's answer key and tests manual. So there's two things that you're going to find here. One is, as I said, you're going to find answer keys to the chapter review. So the chapter review is kind of like a pre-test or like a practice test. So students can do that on their own. You can choose whether you want them to do it open book or book closed as a way to test and see what they have really learned or memorized. And then the answers, for example, the chapter 8 chapter review that I just showed you, the answers to that chapter review are here in the book. Also included in the answer key and test book are the tests. So for example, I picked this one particularly because it's got a nice diagram. So this is the test for chapter 3. Students at the beginning of the test are going to be labeling parts of this cell here. They've got terms that they need to add to the diagram, and then questions to answer. And then it does note at the bottom of the book that the owner of this book is free to copy this page. So if you are teaching multiple students, maybe not all in the same year, but maybe you have multiple students in your homeschool who are going to take biology in subsequent years, hang on to this book and you can just copy those tests for future students. And then, of course, there are answer keys for the tests. And they not only tell you the answers, but they also give you an idea about how many points to assign for right answers so that you don't have to think through how to weight the different questions and how many points to take off if something is incorrect. Now, there's an additional product that we had an opportunity to try out, and this does not come included with the textbook, but you can find it on the website along with the other resources that go along with this curriculum, and that is Science Roots. Now, I just about started drooling when I saw this book because I am a Latin major, so I'm a bit of a language nerd, and the whole focus of this book is to take the vocabulary, as I pointed out before, heavy focus on vocabulary in the textbook. This book takes the vocabulary from each section and looks at not only the meanings of the words themselves, but any root words and looks at other uses of those root words. Also from chapter 8, the word path. And again, I don't know if you can read it on the camera or not, but it says path means feeling, disease, treatment. So some words that we get, or some words that include that root form, are things like pathogen and pathology, but also things like apathy and empathy and antipathy. So again, science is heavily vocabulary. And one approach to that is just have kids memorize all these words. But what if we could take a step back and instead of just saying, you know, memorize this word, memorize this word, memorize this word, what if we were looking for language patterns and then helping them to learn, you know, parts of words that are not only going to impact their understanding of what they're doing in science, but it's going to have a cross application to other subjects. And you may have already thought of this, but that kind of learning and that ability to analyze words, super helpful when it comes to preparing for something like the SATs or the ACTs, because those are vocabulary heavy, and the ability to look at a word, maybe even a word that you don't know, and to say, well, I haven't seen this word particularly before, but I do recognize that there's a part here that means something, and I can maybe deduce which of these answer choices might be correct based on what I know about a part of a word. So this way of approaching vocabulary for science is just a great way to connect interdisciplinary learning and to help our students think about language and words and where they come from and what they mean. There are a couple of other things that you might want to keep in mind if you're considering this biology program for your high school. As I mentioned, a lot of the experiments that are in the book for students to use are very easy to complete with things that you have on hand or that you could easily get from the grocery store or the drugstore. There are some experiments that would require a microscope or that would require a dissection kit. And thankfully, those are available on the website along with these biology materials. So if you plan to go into those experiments and you purchase those ahead of time, there's also a set of slides that you can purchase, pre-made slides that will help you to see various different things that you're going to be studying in the biology curriculum. So again, super convenient to have all of this available for purchase, have it all on hand, and not be scrambling each week to try to find resources and materials that you need to carry out these experiments in your homeschool. And with these experiments, it makes for a very hands-on, a very experiential learning of high school biology. So I would highly encourage you, if you're looking for a biology curriculum, to check out Discovering Design with Biology from Berean Builders.